record it, drop, you can't ignore it.
This is unbelievable.
That's cool, man. I enjoy it.
Yep. So did you come from the distillery? Is like you say, just your day off?
No, I'm day off today. It's on Monday.
Yeah.
So Mondays I get to sit at home, do nothing. So this worked out great.
Yeah, I hear you just get to sit there and hang out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how's everything over at Wild Turkey? So kind of tell me, kind of walk me through what you do there.
What I do, man, pretty much anything that's to be done at that particular moment.
Yeah.
The actual title they apply is called brand builder.
Mm.
So anything that can promote, like I do these podcasts for bourbon podcasts, things of that nature. If somebody comes in, that doesn't have a clue what they're looking for, then I can help them out. You might come in there one day and I'll be mopping the floor, and the next day I'm running the bar. It just depends.
I saw where a lot of people they try to call and see if you be the one to give them the tour of the distillery.
I'm pretty fortunate, man, that people care enough to want to do that. It's been a combination of obviously my previous job, and then the fact that I'm over there now and doing that and kind of dug in so deep into the whole culture of bourbon, the process, and all that.
Well, man, I'm just starting out, so I'm gonna have to come to you for some advice and some knowledge, because obviously you see here I got my William Tarr up here. It's not officially announced, but by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be announced. But I just partnered up with them not too long ago, actually last week. You're trying to help Coach Stoops build this brand and kind of be what you are. Just kind of do whatever I can to help on social media and help in public events and different things like that. And they're wanting me to get my some sort of master
bourbon steward.
Yeah, my bourbon steward.
Yeah, I've done that course.
Yeah, so I'm briefing up on my bourbon knowledge as we speak. I actually just got done looking at one of my PowerPoints before I came over here, and so there's a lot to that shit, man. There's a lot to it.
There is. Marketing is, right now, is one of the biggest things in bourbon, man, the way you market your product.
Oh, absolutely. It's like every time I see a podcast or I see, just a show or something like that, somebody's in the bourbon game. Like Bruce Buffer from UFC, I had no idea that he was in the bourbon game.
I didn't either.
And then, you look at some other people that's in the bourbon game, and all of a sudden, then Coach Stoops hops into it.
Peyton Manning,
everybody, everybody's trying to get their hands on it.
Scottie Pippen just opened.
Oh, really?
He's got one of his own. It didn't open a distillery, but he's now got his own thing going too. Everybody's doing it. So, I mean,
it's just, and the thing about it is, it's from Kentucky, baby, making Kentucky
exactly
cool.
95% of it in the whole world's made right here in Kentucky.
Hey, man, where we come from, though, we had a little bit different liquor growing up.
Yeah,
we had that white
that's
moonshine.
why this is such an easy transition for me, man. My grandfather was a moonshiner up there in the hills.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't separating alcohol from liquid wasn't a foreign concept to me at all.
We was just used to that corn, straight up corn liquor. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, this
is
smooth compared to what we grew up with.
Absolutely, son. I remember, so my family did it too. I mean, hell, they're from up Pike Floyd Holler. And because for people that don't know, Bo is a Floyd County native back in the hills of Eastern Kentucky.
Yes.
And so is my side of the family. My mom's side grew up in Betsy Lane. Little small town for you people that don't know. It's about from here to the end of the street from where we are in size, but there's a lot of great culture that comes from there, and obviously it's produced, great talent like yourself and many others that are, already on top of country music charts, other genres of music charts, and some other people that are on the up and coming and rising up. And so, just being from those hills, man, I mean, for a long time, I believe that people looked at Appalachia in a light of, there's not that much there. I mean, in reality, there's not, but I'm talking about from a standpoint of talent as far as either athletically, musically, artistically, in any shape, form, or fashion like that. And then you see guys like you, guys like Chris Stapleton, guys like Dwight Yoakam, who, in fact, my grandmother babysat at one point in time.
Right?
Yeah, she babysat Dwight Yoakam, man. So
I ran into Dwight backstage at an ACM Awards. Actually, it wasn't the awards; it was the after party, and there was a big jam session that went on afterwards. Well, we would always go take part in those big jam sessions. Well, Dwight had showed up back there to do that, and I went over, and everybody had been like, "Oh man, Dwight's a jerk. Don't speak to Dwight. Don't say he doesn't like to be bothered." And I just walked up to him. I was like, "Hey man, we've never met." I said, "I'm from about 10 minutes away from where you are, in a little holler around Allen, Kentucky." Man, he started talking. He and I stood there and talked for like 20 minutes, and everybody's like standing there with their mouth open, like, "What could you possibly have to say that interested Dwight?" And he was the nicest guy in the world to me. But we had that Eastern Kentucky comment.
Yeah, he said that had that Eastern Kentucky connection, and something like that. That I go across the country, so I go across turkey hunting, bass fishing, different things like that, and I always come across somebody that has Eastern Kentucky roots, no matter where I go. Mm-hmm. I was down in I believe Pensacola, Florida, last year, and I went to a concert to a buddy of mine, Billy Strings, who we'll get to that topic in a second, of all my favorite guitarists, because like I was telling Brandon, this is really cool for me because I get to talk to a legend in playing guitar, talking about I know you can shake your head in that. You're humble. You're a humble guy, and I appreciate that. But I get to talk to somebody who actually has lived that life and has been around such musically gifted people that I can sit there and actually talk about my favorite guitar. So it's gonna be pretty cool. But I went to Billy Strings concert down there in Pensacola, and we get on the shuttle bus to go over to the concert. We had to park like a mile away or something like that. And we get on the bus, and we're sitting there, and we're me and my buddy Tanner, who's my cameraman that goes on the road with me, and we're on our way to the venue, and we start talking to the bus driver. She's this little old lady, probably in her mid 60s, something like that, maybe close to 70. And I noticed she had that Eastern Kentucky twang about her, and I was like, 5 or so minutes went by. I looked around, I said, "Honey, where are you from?" Just like that there. She goes, "I'm from Big Stone Gap, Virginia."
Oh, that's not too far away.
No, not too far away. I was like, that's right across the hill from Jenkins. I was like, we travel that route every time. We'd have to go play baseball in Johnson City, or someplace like that. But it's always cool to go to different places and tell people where you're from. And so they say, "Oh, I know somebody that's dated a guy from Pikeville or or Paintsville, Harlan, or something like that." Is because I think now that guys like Stapleton and guys like you and guys like Tyler Childers and Sturgill Simpson and different guys like that have brought a different light to Eastern Kentucky through music, and I think it's great because it's getting positive attention so much rather than what we're used to with people from the outside not knowing exactly what it's even like to live there. And so for people, like when I would get up here, it was a big change for me for coming up here to college because, the biggest classroom that I had was, 19 people. And all of a sudden I'm up here with, 300 people in one class. And I'm like, man, what the hell have I got myself into? But it's just great, to see a different light be shined on Eastern Kentucky. And so first off, thank you for being a part of that, man.
Oh, no, man. I'm blessed to have come from where I did up there and to go where I've been, Yeah. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't know anybody from Eastern Kentucky who got an invite to the White House. I was floored by that. But those kind of things happen just organically. It just happened because we were lucky enough to make some music that people enjoyed.
Right. Man, I would say that you're probably one of the only guys that I know of now. I didn't know anybody at that time got an invite to the White House, but now I do know one guy that got an invite to the White House.
Yeah, it was bizarro. I still have friends, more than one, who were members of the Secret Service and just became friends. They are actually how we wound up getting the invite. They were big Montgomery Gentry fans. I was like, yeah, we'd love to come visit.
You guys absolutely rocked the world when you guys were out on tour, man. I mean, in general, when you guys started up, when you were coming up, and all of a sudden when you guys finally made it big, it seems like everybody and their brother at that time knew Montgomery Gentry, and the things you guys did, got to travel all the way across the world, to travel the globe and bring country music to so many different people. And, you did it with a great group of guys. And so just walk me through it, how you came up, coming from Floyd County. Take me through the journey from coming from Allen, Kentucky, and then selling out arenas with Montgomery Gentry.
Yeah, it's bizarre when you hear it put into context like that. It sounds really weird to me, actually, that all that did happen in that line, but it did. I grew up in that little holler up there, man, and we didn't have much. Well, by today's standards, we didn't have anything. When I was young, no running water. We had the outhouse and all that kind of thing, and a well in the front yard. But I'll have to say that my family is the biggest reason that I ever started wanting to play music. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, was what I had dreamed of doing. I wasn't good enough, but that's what I wanted to do. And all of them played. So they all played. My grandfather, I'm talking about, that played made moonshine. He played banjo. Play the old school clawhammer style banjo, man. It was so cool. And every Sunday, the family would all get together and start playing bluegrass music. I wanted to be part of that so bad I couldn't stand it, but I couldn't play, obviously. Right about 15 or 16, I started taking it pretty serious. Like, I want to learn to do this. Started learning to play music. Then I started hearing other groups. And, like, Skinner was the one that just changed my whole world. I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. That kind of music, I want to play like that. I want to be in a band like that. I had no idea that would eventually come to fruition for me with what we did. But, you know, my wife said, you know, at what point in time did you walk out on the front porch in that holler? She's from Pikeville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she was like, so what point in time do you walk out on that front porch in that holler and think, you know, I think I'm going to travel the whole world and have a platinum record on the wall? And I said, everybody told me I couldn't, but I said, I was just like, why not? What's the reason that I can't if I'm good enough? Now, having said that, I did not realize the politics in music at all. I just thought if you were really good, you were going to make it. That has nothing to do with it.
Walk me through that. What do you mean by that?
They call it the music business for a reason. Music is fun. It's what you do, right? Music is a part of you. It just naturally comes out. The business can wear you down. It can suck all the fun right out of it. Like with anything in entertainment wise, I'm sure.
Right.
But it's a business.
Right.
You know?
Just like the way because I learned firsthand of how ruthless the NFL is and different things like that. Obviously, I didn't get my shot. We'll save that story for another time. But everything that's involved, because at the end of the day, that's the way I looked at football too, is just because, like, at the end of the day, yeah, we're athletes, we're players, but there's 60,000 to 100,000 freaking seats out there that are going to be filled. So we have to be entertainers, you know, at some point in time, you know, of what we're doing out here. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of how I looked at it. And so hearing, you know, somebody talk about the music industry, you know, the same way I kind of looked at football was kind of really interesting. And so I've always heard about musicians always having an issue with their music producer or their label or something like that when it comes to getting their share of the cut. Kind of walk me through that if you have any kind of experience with that, or if you know of anybody, or you know something.
It's nothing. It's not unusual at all for acts to have big albums and the lion's share. The money doesn't go to them. You know, well, a great example is Taylor Swift. Look what she did. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that I've got Taylor Swift albums or whatever, but I've got a daughter and I know what it sounds like. So, and we actually did shows with Taylor. One of the sweetest, I don't know about now, but when we did shows with her, is one of the sweetest young girls you ever met in your life. She literally couldn't believe that everybody wanted to talk to her. She was just this young teenage girl. But it got to the point for her, she's like, wait a minute, I wrote those songs. That's my music. But she didn't have control of those albums. So what Taylor did was went back and recut the songs, redid those songs that were massive. She went back and sang them again, recorded them all over again, so she could have control over them because the record label wouldn't give up control of those albums.
Yeah, I heard a similar
story.
That was
genius.
Like that. Absolutely genius. I can't remember exactly who was it in. I believe it was in the hip hop game. John Legend, or I can't remember. I remember A$AP Rocky talking about it. I could be wrong. If somebody's listening to this in the comments, please correct me. But last deal on his record, or last record on his deal was coming up, or something like that. He cuts a dummy album, but he also cuts the real album. For once he gives him that, he's like, "Hey, you give me that cut of what I get there, and I'm out."
Right.
So we recorded a dummy album of him just like in a room talking with his friends with a beat going on with it.
Yeah.
And then actually took his real album, took it independent, and made millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
With it.
What record labels don't tell young and new artists is that they tell you, we're going to pay for it. We'll take care of this. We're going to get you a bus. We're going to get you all the lights, the bells and whistles, blah, blah, blah. They tell you all that to make your show great. You better hope you hit, and you better hope you make money, because if you don't, that's recoupable. That money they put into you, they're going to get it back.
Yeah.
If you don't sell enough records to make it, they're still going to get their money back. So, they don't ever mention recoupables. You learn that the hard way too, about what they can take back from you and that kind of thing. Then you hope you get to write your own material, because you can get a good cut there. Writers do, well, I don't know about now, but when we were still doing really well in the business, writers made some money. It reached a point, and I think this has a lot to do with the state of music where it's at right now. This is just my personal opinion, but there's so much of it out there, I can't tell you one singer from the other. I'm not sure which one's which, because musically it sounds exactly like the other song. Mm-hmm. Vocally, it sounds a whole lot like the other dude that was singing. So I'm not sure who's who anymore. And I think songwriters got taken completely out of their game with digital music, because now people don't have to buy the entire record.
No.
They can go buy one song. All right, what that does to your songwriter is it says, I've got to write to the radio. I can't write whatever's burning me up inside and what I feel really emotional about and make a living like that now. I got to write to that radio so I can get a hit and make money on it.
Right.
Album cuts don't make any money.
So, like, what if, like, a guy like me, so, like, I have Apple Music. Mm-hmm. And so if I were to go to, and I pay, whatever X amount a month for that, and it gives me unlimited access to download any song I want on Apple Music. And I go to a Montgomery Gentry album, any album you guys have cut, and I just hit the plus button. It doesn't tell me if I'm buying it or not. Mm-hmm. What does that do for people like that, or the band behind it?
We were kind of coming in, or going, I say going out, but it was kind of getting to that point where the up and comers were starting to be the bigger deal. And that was when that digital stuff was just coming in. We were coming in when there was still the big fight with, was it Metallica fighting with somebody?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was just going on right as we were starting to come back down from that plateau. So I'm not really sure how they've got all of that set up now, as far as, I'm sure the writer still gets money on it. Now I think what it is like it used to be what they called spins when they were sending records to the radio stations. Mm-hmm. You got paid based on how many spins you got from a reporting radio station. It's so all bureaucratic is the best way I can say. Nashville looks like a really big city, but it's a really small town.
Right.
So
it's like compared, like when I go out and fishing, it's a big lake, but it fishes small.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. So they all take care of each other, producers of certain albums have certain guys they work with in the studio, so they bring them in to play on every record. That's why every song sounds the same. It's the same guys playing on every song.
Right. I just feel like do you feel like there's been so many musicians out there in our time, from, like, let's say when music was be able to be recorded and put out to people, that it's like, well, how do I invent a new sound? How do I invent my own sound type deal? Or do you think it's more like, well, this is what's happening as of right now, and this is what people are like as far as what this guy sounds like vocally. If I can somehow get to that kind of vocal point, what do you think that attributes to?
I think when we were doing it, when we were playing in bars and clubs and everything like that, we had a hunger for it. Mm-hmm. And we were literally beating ourselves to death in these bars and clubs, making no money. There just wasn't any money to be made really at that point in time, but we were trying to get to that next level. Now, I say that not like we were more talented than somebody else or what have you. The reason I say that is we've reached a point now, you got TV shows where offering people record deals. Now, what do they look like? What do they sound like? It feels like, and again, this is just an opinion from an old guy who's already done his time and was blessed to have a little spot there for a minute. It feels like they don't have to pay their dues anymore, so you don't get the realism and the gut-wrenching agony and pain and defeat that we all went through because they haven't been through anything yet. So there's nothing to sing about other than what that writer gives them to sing about.
Well, hell, all it takes nowadays is just one TikTok to blow up, and then the next thing
you're a star.
You have an album.
Yeah. It's more so about stardom to me. This is, again, all my opinion, but it's more so about stardom than it is the music.
Right. It's all about being famous, cutting checks, and, trying to live easy.
Right.
Not really about the music itself. And, one guy comes to mind, and this isn't a knock to him. I mean, he just, took advantage of an opportunity, and this isn't a knock to anybody who's out there taking advantage of an opportunity because, A, you're not having to tie yourself down to a record label, but like you said on the backside of that, you're not really having to pay those dues of like going to those dive bars, having to fight your way out of some places, pretty sure. You just went in your living room, set up as a tripod and put on a phone and literally either covered a song that's been already written, or you just, you blew up on one good song that you wrote on the internet. And so, but at the same time, like I've said, kudos to those guys. But, the one guy, I can't remember his name right now, but it's the one guy I'm thinking of is the guy with the song about Applebee's.
I don't know.
I can't, Applebee's on a late night. Well, anyways, he just randomly wrote a song like that. And next thing you know, Applebee's is like, paid him millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, again, I could be wrong on how this whole shit went down. So you fuckers in the comment section, I know you're going to let me know. But anyways, that's just how I'm pretty sure it went down. Like the dude wrote the song about it. And it's a catchy ass song, for kids, for people that like that kind of style of country music now. I mean, I call it country pop, but at the end of the day, people are going to like what they like. But the dude ended up making millions of dollars just talking about an Applebee's milkshake.
Yeah.
So
and in all fairness, there was nothing. We didn't have opportunities like that.
Right.
The only way you got seen with our generation was to be in that bar, to be on a stage in a bar somewhere. That's how you got seen.
I think that makes it all worthwhile, though, and it makes it more, at the end of the day, worth it. Of paying those dues, failure after failure, having to find a way to get over with the crowd, having to find a way to invent something that people can listen to over and over and over again and not get tired of it, and build that fan base around you guys to where you go from playing to a dive bar to selling out Rupp Arena, or something like that. And so to kind of walk me through of how you and Eddie and Troy Gentry got hooked up with all this, how it started.
I moved down here to Lexington, finally left Eastern Kentucky because I was like, okay, I do know that they're not going to come up this holler looking for me. I know that wasn't going to happen. So my goal was to move here to Lexington, start playing, find myself a good gig here in Lexington, start playing music in the bars. And as funny as it sounds now to say this, I had already heard that John Michael was taking off big at that point. So I had already heard that John Michael was known to pop into bars and get up and sing with people. And I was like, my goal is first to get to Lexington, get a job to kind of establish myself down here. And maybe he might walk into the bar I'm in, not realizing how any of that whole game played out.
Right.
And he did. I mean, he came into the bar where I was playing before and got up and sang with us. But that was supposed to be a stepping stone to Nashville for me, to come here, get myself financially able to go on to Nashville. As fate would have it, I met Troy at the Comedy Club, Comedy Off Broadway. That's where I met Troy at. Technically met him, I should say. Right before I moved down here, I was in a band from Eastern Kentucky. Ironically, the guy that I was in that band with was Stapleton's cousin. Yes, and Stapleton looked up to him. Now, at this point in time, Chris was a young dude when I was up in Eastern Kentucky. He was like 13, 14 years old. And he really looked up to his cousin, right? Chris Stapleton would come and see us play when he could, when it was somewhere he could come. And I had no idea. Nobody knew what that dude was going to do later on. And he blew up as one of the biggest things on the planet, which is awesome for me to see. Anyway, I get down here, and the band that I was in with his cousin, we played the K93 had a thing over at Breedings they called K93 Summer Search. And it was basically a competition, band competition. The winner got to open for our national act at the Horse Park. Had no idea about this, but I meet Troy a couple, 3 years later after I'd moved to Lexington. meet Troy at the comedy club. And I said, hey, man, I'm trying to work circles. So I go up to Troy. I was like, hey, man, just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. My name's Bo. I just moved down here from Eastern Kentucky. So if you're ever looking for somebody to play guitar a little bit, just let me know, that kind of thing, that kind of conversation. Troy goes, wait a minute, I know you, don't I? And he starts describing that band from Eastern Kentucky. And I'm like, yeah, that was us. He said, you guys won that, right? I said, yeah, that was us. He said, I had just won the Jim Beam Talent Search, and I was a judge, and I voted for you guys. That's how Troy Gentry and I met. He had voted for us in a talent show years before. I had no idea about this. And man, after that night, he and I became buddies. He introduced me to Eddie, of course. And then it became like, if you saw one of us, one of the other two was usually with him.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to be, those were my brothers before we ever did anything Montgomery Gentry. I was pretty lucky about that, to have those guys as my friends, which was fun for us because, well, I shouldn't put words in Eddie's mouth, but it was fun for me because the only thing that really changed when we hit the road, when it became Montgomery Gentry, the only thing that really changed for us was the money, and we were traveling, and there was more people in the crowd. We were still doing kind of the same thing on stage we'd always done. It was music. We were having a good time playing music.
That's awesome.
And I think people see that. I think they're like, holy cow, these guys are totally different than anything out there right now. And they're having more fun than I am. So I think that kind of bled over into the crowd. And man, for 20 some years there, we were doing really well.
They saw the authenticity behind it. You know,
yeah.
they saw how much you guys loved what you do. You have loved going out there and putting on a great performance for those people and just having fun and playing music, you know, the only way you know how, and that's having fun with it.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome to hear, man, just because, you know, so many people that I've known and, you know, or see, or hell, I've even experienced this some myself, you know, when I was playing, you know, when you go from absolutely nobody to then randomly somebody at that point in time, it's like, well, I've never had this kind of attention before. I've never had this, you know, when people are pulling me one way, I've got this guy reaching out to me. You know, my favorite band's coming to Lexington. They invited me to side stage and this shit right here. And then it's just like one whole whirlwind of a different experience that comes at you at once. And so just to hear that you guys were able to handle it and just be like, well, you know, oh, okay, we got more money, great. There's more people in the crowd entertained, great. But everything else we do, we're staying the same.
It was still the same group of guys. We were just on a bus rather than in one room in a hotel somewhere.
Yeah, having trouble playing dive bars.
Right, exactly. But it was the same group of guys who all loved each other starting out. So, you know, that first Montgomery Gentry record, that was about as authentic as you could possibly get. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is the songs that they picked for that record were perfect for what we were trying to do back in the bars. So it worked out great for it to be the first record with that kind of songs on it. And I'll challenge you to tell me a producer anywhere now that would drive up here to Lexington to hear us rehearse those songs in Troy's mother's basement here in Lexington. The producer of the record drove up here to Lexington, and Joe Scaife was his name. And I'll be completely honest, when I heard that Joe Scaife was going to produce the record, I was kind of like, wait a minute, isn't that the guy that did Achy Breaky Heart? And Eddie and Troy were like, yeah. I was like, oh, are you sure about this? But they knew better than I did because, man, he came up, he listened to us play those songs in that basement, and he literally put together an authentic Montgomery Gentry record about, this is what it sounds like when they play it. This is what I want to recreate.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So it started out in Lexington, and then did the producer come up to Lexington and then take you guys to Nashville, or did you guys make a kind of a circuit around Nashville at that time too? Well,
the album came first before we started doing a lot of shows down in Nashville. So
okay.
you put the album together first, you know, and him coming up here, listening to us, and then going back to Nashville and saying, this is what it sounds like, this is what it needs to be. This is what it sounds like when they do it.
Right.
And then after that, we started playing different things. We'd done man, I think before they signed the deal, I think we had played like 6 or 7 different showcases for record labels.
Wow.
Got turned down by every one of them until the last one.
All it takes is that one shot.
That last shot was the one that worked out.
I'm sure those other guys are sitting there going, damn, we fucked up. We fucked up.
Well, what it was is funny because I think the reason why is because what MG did was totally different than what was happening on the radio back then. The hit songs at that point in time it was more of a, as Eddie would say, the world is beautiful and I'm in love, blah, blah. And I remember Eddie telling the producer one day, he said, I don't care how much you love her, you ain't that much in love every day of the week. So that's when they were having the conversation about what the first single would be. And it became Hillbilly Shoes because of Eddie going, nope, don't want to sing no love songs. I want to come out, kick them right in the teeth, right out of the gate, and let them know who we are. And it was so different than anything out there.
Bulls in the China shop.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. Well, when the first gold record on Tattoos and Scars was done, I remember the president of Sony Records being on stage to present those gold records, and he was like talking about having come up here for a showcase. He came to Austin City to see us. And he said, during his little spiel about the record being gold, he said, I remember when I went to see this showcase in Lexington, and he said, I'm waiting and waiting. He said, they were late coming out. He said, finally they came out and said, here they come. They've got a cigarette in one hand and a glass of whiskey in the other. And he said, I'm looking at this going, what have I just got myself into? And he was the guy that said, I remember about 2 songs in, I'm like, wait a minute. They're not pretending. That's just who they are.
Yeah.
And he liked that. So that was luckily for everybody involved.
Welcome to Austin City.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he said everybody there was like, everybody was coming back with a shot of whiskey. He's like, here you go, here you go. He's like, I was like, oh, this is a setup. I see how this works.
Hey, and nothing's changed. Let me
Exactly.
tell you what, nothing's changed. I'll tell you what, that's probably literally, I go out sometimes here in Lexington, just with my buddies and here and there, but it's not my thing really. But the one place that I will go to willingly every single time if somebody says, hey, let's go to Austin City, I'm like, bet, let's go, let's get after it, because I will have a good time there, and if I tend to have too little of a good time, I tend to get up on stage, hum a little tune, but I know I'm not that good, so I know people are just fake cheering for me.
Well, hey,
at least they're clapping now.
Exactly.
At least
right,
they're clapping, they're not booing.
That's right. Yeah, that was the big spot when we were, Austin City was the good gig.
Well, so many people have come through there, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just you guys,
And that's why.
And, even the up-and-coming guys, like right now with Dylan Carmichael and Tyler Booth and those guys right now trying to make a name for themselves, I mean, it's just like, one of the most legendary places in Lexington for country music. And so, that's one of the reasons why I love going there, just because of the rich history in it. And then knowing that, I'm more than likely going to have a hell of a time.
Oh, yeah.
That's just icing on the cake, man.
Man, Dylan is one of those once-in-a-lifetime kind of singers, too.
He is, man. He's unbelievable. I love when he gets on stage and he takes, it seems like he just literally instantly takes command of the crowd, right when he gets on there.
He reminds me so much, if you haven't already picked this up, go back and listen and you'll see what I'm saying. He reminds me of Eddie when Eddie was young.
Yeah.
I hear so much of young Eddie Montgomery, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what the heck? Montgomery's got some kind of little vial in the freezer and you inject the kids when they're little and they all sing? What is the heck? What's the deal with that? It's funny, man. He's a heck of a singer, and a great human being, man.
Oh, he's unreal. I remember I was down in Hendersonville fishing Old Hickory Lake, and just out of the blue, I was like, I'll see if what Dylan's up to. And Texas says, hey man, I'm down here, Old Hickory Lake fishing. If you want to come out and get a line wet, just let me know. Instantly texted me right back. Said, man, I would. I goes, I'll definitely be there, but I got a show right now. He said, well, let me know when you get back down there and we'll definitely get in. So he
loves fish.
Oh, I know he does. And he's been dying to go with me. So I'm hoping we get that done one day. Hopefully we can get him on the podcast one day when he's back in Lexington. Cause I like to sit down and talk with him. I actually sung with him on stage one night at Austin City.
Dylan?
I think he covered for me. And I think that's why they were clapping, instead of booing my ass off stage. But, talking to a lot of young and up-and-coming singers and listening to a lot of guys that have been to Nashville, took the Nashville route, I know that was a thing back in those times of you got to get to Nashville if you want to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel the same way today about if you really want to take it serious? Because I know we've already talked about, with TikTok and, social media and different things like that people are able to do on their own just because of how technologically advanced we are in these days compared to when you guys were coming up. Do you think that's still a goal that people should have, or do you think that they should just get their guitar, get their band, and whoever they're with, get in the van and start traveling across the country and start playing at, different bars all the way across the country?
I think the technology's changed things. Now, I'm no stretch of the imagination and authority on this, but I would imagine it is not as necessary as it once was to be in town down there, because honestly, the showcases that we did were here in Lexington, but I remember making so many trips down there with Eddie and Troy to meet with their management and things of that nature. Just go down and, obviously wasn't going to make any decisions. I was just there to have a good time with Eddie and Troy. But I remember doing that a lot, even though we weren't living in Nashville. Now you've got, like you're saying, man, technology, Zoom, all these things. You can be in the room with somebody and be 3 states away.
Right.
So I don't know. I can't speak, like I said, with authority, but I wouldn't imagine it's as necessary as it once was. The thing you got to remember about being in Nashville is that when you go to the 7-Eleven or the Quick Mart or whatever to buy yourself a Mountain Dew, that young man or young woman behind the counter that just took your $3 is probably as good or better than you were.
Yeah.
And that's what they wound up doing because their break hadn't happened. It can give you that. Nashville gives you this, oh, I'm so close. I'm in Nashville now. I'm so close to making it. That's what 100,000 people who live in Nashville thought when they first moved to Nashville. I'm so close. And maybe you are. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying I don't think it's important as it used to be. I don't believe. And I could be completely wrong, but I don't think so.
Just for me, looking from the outside in, and guys like Tyler Childers, who I fortunately was fortunate enough to grow up around,
That's right.
see his career, and see the venues that he played and where he was playing them. And then listening to guys like Sturgill Simpson talk about it. That was the reason why I asked that question, is because I heard Sturgill Simpson say one time that he doesn't believe that Nashville is a place for, up and coming artists anymore if they want to build a fan base around them. He's like, you go to different states, go to different towns in that state, build up a fan base along the, hit towns on the East Coast, and then go to, cross country to west, hit Georgia, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and come back. Just go around the country and build up fans to where everybody around the country has heard you before, and not just in Nashville. And pray to God that somebody finds you on SoundCloud or Apple Music or Spotify or something like that, to where you're actually going to those people and showing up and putting on a great performance, to where like, hey, have you heard about, so-and-so, he's this crazy son of a bitch from Kentucky who can, play the shit out of a guitar. He can sing and do everything like that. He's great. And I think that's kind of how Tyler, kind of blew up, is because I remember one time I won this pool party at the Paintsville City Pool. I think I was a junior, and I was just starting to get recruited in football. And I won this pool party, and Childers had just come out with an album on Spotify or whatever, and it seemed like we were like the only people in Appalachia that really had heard of Childers. And so I won it, and it was and the date that I had it for was my buddy Luke Trimble, who was on this podcast. It was his birthday at that time. Luke's an up-and-coming folk singer, country singer, whatever you want to call it, and that's what his schedule's been. He travels to Williamson, Fort Gay, literally all across the the tri-state area down here in Appalachia, just to go around and play shows. And he's finally getting along. He finally got a full band. For one of his better songs. I think it's going to take off really good, hopefully, for him. And but anyway, so it was his birthday, and we were like, well, man, we were sitting there thinking, I was like, well, what if we could somehow get Childers to come play at this thing? And we're like, dude, he won't come, this and that. And so just randomly one day I fire out a tweet at him, like, hey, how much, could you come play at Luke Trimble's birthday party? And randomly enough, the guy came over. We charged $5 at the door. He set up on a picnic bench and just went to town, man. And it was probably one of the coolest experiences we had. And then right before COVID hit, me, Luke, and all my buddies, we go to Rupp Arena when he's playing with Sturgill Simpson. and there's not a seat in the house with a butt in it. Yep. Everybody's out of their seat, and it's packed, and we're sitting there like, dude.
See the success of somebody like him and Sturgill, and you know that they can sell out places because you've physically seen it.
Yeah.
You've been witness to it. That's where I think, and I don't think Nashville is nervous about it yet because they still feel like we are the end all and be all. And technically, we kind of are when you get with radio stations and things like that, and all of that one big ball of we're all in this together to control the industry kind of thing. But I saw it with a band, my favorite band out there right now. I don't know if you ever listened to Blackberry Smoke.
I've listened to a couple of their songs.
Being a guitar player, they obviously hit me right in the feels.
Right.
Man. I love those guys. I found those guys because we were playing a festival one day, and they were opening up, and one of our guys came back, hey, did you see a guy with that opening band? We didn't even know their name at that point. Guy with that opening band's playing a Firebird, looks a lot like yours. I'm like, oh, no kidding? Well, I'm going to go out and see what they've got going on. I go out to the side of the stage to listen to these guys, and I'm like, holy freaking cow, these guys are ridiculous. And talked to them afterwards. A couple of them came up on the bean bus and spent too much time. And then we kind of, did several more shows with them later on, opening up. Now, these guys get no radio player. You're not going to hear them on the radio.
No.
They sell out amphitheaters.
That's incredible, man.
Because they went directly to the people with their music.
Yeah.
And didn't count on Nashville to make their music out there.
Yeah.
It's great if Nashville likes you and if Nashville wants you to be a hit. That's a great thing because you're going to get your music out there a lot easier because they can get it to those radio stations and get it played. Mm-hmm. Whereas you can't do that on your own. It's not like the days of Miss Loretta where you show up with a little 45 record and say, would you play my record? And then they would start doing it. That's not how that works anymore.
Paintsville radio station wouldn't do that to her, so that's why she hates Paintsville still.
Is that right?
Yes, yeah. They wouldn't play her record. And she's like, well, forget this
bizarro.
place. No.
Bizarro.
Now look at her. It seems like the people that get turned down the biggest when they shouldn't get turned down end up being the biggest stars.
It can motivate you.
Yeah.
That's another thing I love about Chris, man, and what he's done to become like this world superstar. He had a bunch of hit songs. He was already a hit writer.
Yeah, Steel Drivers, everything like that. He was awesome.
So it wasn't, he didn't need Nashville to be that big. He was already doing good for himself.
No. Right.
He had that Luke Bryan cut. You get a Luke Bryan cut at that point in time, that's going to buy some groceries.
Well, he also, I think he paid for his first house, and I could be wrong. He wrote Your Man for, who the hell sung that? I can't remember his name. Just to be your man. Fuck, I can't remember. Anyways, but he wrote.
Dale cut one of his songs.
Yeah. I mean, he was killed in the songwriting game down there. So obviously, he was able to pay some bills just through that. And then all of a sudden, he was still, with the Steel Drivers. And then I remember, I grew up in a neighborhood called Cross Creek Subdivision in Johnson County. Moved there when we moved from basically Allen. We moved there in 2005. And when I got into middle school, when I started taking football and, different in sports pretty seriously, I would go run the evenings in my neighborhood. Well, I would run past this house almost every single evening, and this pretty rather large dude with long hair and a big-ass beard would be sitting out there in his front porch just absolutely making this guitar cry. I'm like, and I didn't know anything really about, playing guitar players or really music at that point, so I was like, damn, this is getting after it. So I just wave, keep jogging on by, and kept doing it, kept seeing him, and then I didn't see him for a while. And then What Are You Listening To came out. And then that's kind of when he started getting blown up. And then I was like, then this guy, and I was like, he was a part of a band before this. And that's when I found the Steel Drivers.
Right.
I was like, that's the dude that was sitting on the front porch. And I tell my Nana I'm so excited. I tell my granny, she's like, that's so-and-so son. Me and her are on the same board of, some committee together. We've known each other for years. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I didn't see him for a long time. And then unfortunately his dad passed away. And he came back for the funeral. And I was out running again. And here he come. I haven't seen him in like 2 years at this point. taking the trash down to the end of the curb. And I was like, damn, I really want to go over and say hi to him right now. But I know he's going through a hard time and everything. So just stuck my hand out and waved. He waved back, and I just kept on going. So that's my interaction with Chris Stapleton. But he's done such a great job of bringing attention to the mountains and helping a lot of people, with what he did with John Central High School.
That was awesome.
Unbelievable what he did to help build that outdoor theater / stage, whatever you want to call it, and also donated thousands and thousands of dollars of musical instruments to their band. And I'll give credit where credit's due. I'm a Paintsville guy, so we don't give John Central hardly credit of anything. But one thing I will say though is that their band could get after it, and going and playing in the those basketball games and different things like that, you could always tell that the John Central band was coming full force. So it was awesome to see Chris do that. But
I'm proud of him being from Eastern Kentucky, man. Cause
Cross Creek subdivision, baby, right there.
It's amazing. Shoot, man. I was going to try to go talk to him. We did a show in Daytona at the Speedway. Big, huge festival. Let's see, it was us, Chris, Kid Rock, and Florida Georgia Line, maybe?
Damn, that's a line.
I can't remember. It was in the infield. And I mean, it's like this thing was massive. I'm sure you've been to Daytona and you know how big that infield is.
Let me ask you real quick. Those Florida Georgia Line guys cool?
I haven't had a ton of interaction with them, to be honest with you. They're kind of like, their music and ours never really put us in a lot of events together.
No, I didn't think so.
And that was an event that was so big, you had to have golf carts to get from your bus to the stage. So there wasn't a whole lot of, we didn't, I don't even think we said hello to Bobby that day. And we've done quite a few things with him.
I gotcha.
But anything I would say would be speculation, really. I've not spent enough time with them to know.
I hear you, bro. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go with your story.
No, that's all right.
I've always wondered that, man, because I'm not a fan of their music, just to be quite honest. And that's not saying I'm not a fan of them. I'm just like, that's not my personal taste.
Well, they opened for us one time, and I went out to watch their show.
Yeah.
And, now this shows you how much I know about what's going to be a hit and what's not either. Because we started hearing all this noise about them, their next big thing, blah, blah, blah. So I got to go see this. And I go out and I watch their show, and I came back to the bus, and I don't remember who it was, if it was Eddie or one of the guys in the band or somebody said, "What'd you think?" And I was just like, I don't get it.
Yeah, literally.
But that obviously doesn't mean I was right. It just meant that I didn't get it. And, of course, I was a little older than their average crowd, too, so there was that.
Well, like I say on this show all the time, I don't know shit about fuck, so especially when it comes to music like that. So those guys are millionaires. I'm not, so obviously they did something right.
Yeah, they've done really well for themselves.
Absolutely.
I got to be good friends with their drummer, and he went through the whole COVID thing. And
oh, really?
One of the nicest guys in the world. And I remember him saying that when he was trying to get the gig with them, there was somehow, I'm paraphrasing at this point, but somehow it was like, what you need to do to get this gig is go in there. He said they use a lot of tracks. He said, so go in there and just play like you're mad at those drums. And he's like, I'm really? And they're like, yep, just keep a beat and play like crazy. And he said, I went in there and started slinging my arms and all this stuff. And he said, I got the gig. So, but
that's charisma on stage. They're sitting there, we can get a badass drummer, that, I mean, if you look back at, live performances, legendary rock bands, and you could always see that the drummer or the lead guitarist was, usually one of the craziest people in the band as far as like putting on a show for the crowd while they're out there.
Oh, he's fun to watch, man.
Yeah.
He's fun to watch. I could totally see it, but it was just funny how he said he got that gig. And I was like, really? You don't want me to no, we don't want you to do any of that cool stuff. Just act like you're going crazy.
Swinging arms to go crazy fist.
And it looks great when you see it like that from the perspective of the audience watching their show. It's like, okay, I get that. I see it. I see why they said that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of great bands and great performances, give me your top, I'm going to say, 5 guitarists of all time.
Number 1's easy. That's going to be Stevie Ray.
Okay.
He's going to be an easy one for me. Top 5. So there's 1. That's the number 1. Not that I ever tried to really emulate him or play like him, but as far as what he was doing, man, Eddie Van Halen was just like, he was from a different planet, I think. I don't know where that all came from, but that dude was just different. One of my personal favorite all-time guitarists who I did try to mock and emulate a lot was Stevie Gaines, the from Leonard Skinner that they lost in the car crash or the plane crash.
Yep.
He was one of my personal favorites.
Oh man, he can make it cry, brother.
Yeah, I loved Stevie. Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top. That dude. If you see the word cool in the dictionary, there's got to be a picture of Billy right beside of it, because that is one of the coolest cats I've ever seen in my life. And it's like you can feel what he's playing. I really like him.
Everybody that you just named right there literally just took me back to like 2003 when I was a kid running around the yard and my dad would be out washing his cars and every single one of those bands would be playing.
He's probably my age. That's
he's around that age. But, and every single one were playing. And so that's awesome, man. Just because, every single one of those dudes had something different that they brought to the game. They had something different that they brought to the table. And I believe that, that's really what makes somebody special and stand out, is because, not only are they a great guitar player and they're not a great singer, this and that, but they got that something that stands out different from everybody else. And it's just the same thing in sports. You can be a great infielder in baseball. You can be a great linebacker in football. You can be a great point guard in basketball. But you got to have something that separates yourself from the guy that's also competing for that same position or competing for that same scholarship, so on and so forth. And so
for me, with those guys, it was emotion.
Yeah.
They played with emotion.
Yeah.
And not just a bunch of notes.
Right.
In the 80s when all the hair bands were going on, I loved that stuff. Played in the hair band. Played a lot of heavy metal. But there became a point there in the 80s right before that whole thing just fell apart and grunge came in.
Yeah. Kind of ruined it.
They had to play every note they knew in every single song. And it was more about the virtuosity and how many notes can you play and how I don't know how to say it, how many notes can I play and how perfectly in time can all those notes be? And how fast can they be? Which wasn't really my thing. Which is funny when you say what you did about grunge there, is like, it went from you had to be a guitar virtuoso till you didn't even have to be able to tune it.
Really?
To be a star. Like some of those grunge bands, man, I'd listen to that and go, I don't get it.
Again, I don't get it, but it works.
Yeah, I don't get it. This guy's out of tune, man. You're saying he's a guitar god?
No.
I don't understand.
No. Well, I'll go ahead and give you my top five, and obviously when I tell you these guys, you can kind of just see my genre of music of what I grew up listening to or what I continue to listen to this day. The first one I have is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is probably my favorite band of all time. Then obviously Jimi Hendrix.
He would have. I said 4. That would have been number 5.
When I have one song in particular that I listen to every time, it's Voodoo Child. And just, I don't know, you can literally feel what he's playing almost. Just pulses through your fucking skin sometimes. And so, and just knowing how much he loved that shit and how much he loved going out performing and having a great time doing it. But then Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Just a big Zeppelin fan, and just love their sound.
That's what I call him. He's created some of the most iconic guitar riffs ever.
Yeah, and then lastly, ended up like I was talking about earlier, my buddy Billy Strings. I was actually very fortunate enough to go fishing with him one time, and it's I got all these videos on my old phone. He brought out a 12-string guitar, sat right by a campfire, and just absolutely went to town. I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm literally watching one of the best guitar players in the world right now at this very moment do his art, a master of his art, just go to absolute town, and him just sitting there just having fun with it and acting like it's nothing.
Yeah, you see a lot of guys that never make it who have that kind of ability, and them not making it may simply be they're not in the right place at the right time. Maybe they don't look right. That's a big part of the business, is look right. When words like image consultant started getting thrown around with MG, I'm like, image consultant? What are you talking about? But a lot of those images are cultivated. Yeah. And necessarily, I get that, because some people aren't that interesting in person, but yet they're talented.
Well, that's what I think. I think you can kind of blame social media for that. just because, just society in general like that, because somebody can pretend to be one person on one thing, and and then have the personality of a door. Right. When they get it could be the same thing for artists. When they're like that as well. And so,
That goes back for me to about how lucky and how blessed I feel, because when we got started and when that first MG record came out and we hit the road, like I said, we weren't doing anything different.
No.
So it wasn't until later that you started hearing that word image consultant. I'm like, do we need that? Is that necessary? I feel like things are going pretty well.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like it's kind of shifting back. Times are kind of shifting back toward kind of like that. We don't really need, kind of stuff like that. Let us be more authentic in who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and I've said this in every episode just because of, how true it is. I just believe the more authentic you are in everything you do, like with how I do these podcasts, with how, I do anything that doesn't require me to be, I'm not going to say professional, because I like to think of myself that I keep everything professional. I just might say a few cuss words here and there, but everything else is just, I want to be myself and I want to be authentic to people. And I think that, people are attracted to that more than, me trying to be buttoned up and be some, straight edge sportscaster that I'm not. And so it would be hard for you guys to say, okay, now we got to, watch what we do when we're on stage. We can't go out there with any, whiskey or anything like that anymore, and then all of a sudden I feel like that would just throw you guys off who you were as a band in general. And so I don't think the performances would have been the same. The songs would have been the same.
That's great that you said that about be who you are. It made me think of a conversation. Well, not really a conversation, a statement that Eddie Montgomery made one time. We were standing on the side of the stage waiting for this certain headliner to come out and do their thing. They're kind of back behind the curtain, right? Well, Eddie and I are standing on one side of the stage, got a red cup in one hand, a cigarette in the other. And they yell out at Eddie, like, "Hey, you got another one of those cigarettes?" And he's like, "Yeah." Hey, "Could you bring me one over here?" I was like, "Bring you one over there. Where your legs broke?" And he's like, No. He said, they don't want me to be seen smoking. And he was like, "Don't want you to be seen smoking. You're a grown man, ain't you?"
Yeah.
And there was that kind of thing going back and forth with Eddie. He's like, "They don't want you to be seen smoking. Well, you're a grown man.
Do whatever the hell you want."
Yeah. So I thought that reminded me of that when you said it. I remember that conversation going down. I just laughed about the whole thing because I thought it was funny.
I mean, it's just crazy, man. I mean, you only get one shot at this shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've had to have a conversation with myself about, is because, when I do this shit, and we're doing video, and Brandon can attest to this, when I'm doing this game day show that I pre-record, I want to put out my best performance every single time, because that's just how I've always been. If I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do anything at the best of my ability. I'm not going to half-ass anything, and I want it to be good. The problem with that is that I think it has to be legit perfect every time, to where I feel like, oh, people aren't going to fucking like this. What are they going to think about this if I say it this way? What are they going to think if, I stutter here, this or that? I'm like, dude, and Brandon can attest to this too. Like, we've had to take so many different takes of different stuff we've recorded before, just because of how I think that, it wouldn't sound good once we put it out. And now it's just like, well, here's the thing. And I've told myself this, and I've listened to, some other people talk about it in the same sense, but I was like, listen, I'm going to die one day. One day, like, it's and as deep as this can get, like, I'm gonna die one day, and so who cares of what of what everybody else thinks about what I sound like, or it may, or if I cuss sometimes, or this or that. I'm gonna be myself, because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life worrying about what I can say and what I can't say, this and that, because as far as I'm still concerned, as of right now, we still live in the United fucking States, and we can say, do whatever we want. That's maybe coming to a close in the near future if we don't start waking up, but that's another conversation for another time. But and it's just freeing for me to know that just do what you want, man. Be who you are. I'm not saying do what you want from a standpoint of like
legal.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Keep it within the lines, folks.
Yeah, stay legal with it.
Stay within the lines. But as far as what your opinions of others, of what they think about you and different things like that. Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
it's going to be yourself.
Yeah, if you worry too much about that, you'll get really anxious. And the anxiety will wear you out.
Yeah.
Again, it's just so blessed to have been with those guys, and for it to be a situation where we were allowed to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like we were out there having a big party, man.
Yeah.
It just happened to be in a different spot every night.
It's just like in the aspect for me, it's just like you guys were just like teammates, like in the
Absolutely,
locker room and everything we did.
We had two quarterbacks with Eddie and Troy both up there, but yeah, we were all on the same team. You didn't we would argue amongst ourselves, get up in each other's faces. That's what family does. But trust me, if it came to a situation, you didn't fight one person, you'd fight everybody.
Absolutely.
That's the way that was. And we felt that way. So it didn't feel like, and I see it a lot and I hear a lot from people that are in the business. It's like, I'll be like, well, what's so-and-so like? Oh, that's cool. You're working with him or her. What's that like? I don't really ever see them. It's like, for us, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because we were together every day.
Yeah.
All of us were. So it doesn't make sense to hear, well, the band doesn't talk to the guy who sings or the girl who sings. They don't talk to each other. Or like, oh, well, they're part of the crew. What's that? What's that supposed to mean? Without them, you don't sound good.
No.
Those are the guys that really don't get any respect as your crew guys.
Right. Behind the scenes guys.
Yeah, they never get seen. But if things are not right and not set up the right way, man, your show's going to suck.
Light people, everybody makes sure audio's good.
Oh, I was the world's worst on gear, man. Whether it be tearing up cables or belt packs or something, I was hard on gear. And it was so funny that got to a point where like everybody else, the guys in the band were like, something of ours breaks, man. It's just like, nobody cares. We got to send up a flare to get some help. And said, it's like if something of his breaks, the Oompa Loompas come out of every corner to help him out. And I was like, well, they're expecting something of mine to break, so they're watching me is what's going on there.
Yeah, I got an extra set of eyes on me, guys. You have no idea what that's like.
Yeah. So, but everybody worked together. And I don't get that. I don't get that as a human being with people and the way we hate on each other. I don't understand it.
Brother, I've asked that question probably more times than I should.
I've been all over the world. Well, there's a lot of countries I haven't been to. That's an overstatement. I've been to a lot of different countries, all right, around the globe. And what I learned from that was I learned about different cultures and different people. But what I learned was when they weren't told to hate me and I wasn't told to hate them,
right.
What happened was you wind up talking with them. You wind up getting to know them and liking them and having fun and laughing together, maybe having a drink together. If we're not told we're supposed to hate somebody and we don't go into it with a preconceived notion that I'm not supposed to like that person, as humans, we're conditioned to kind of
we're all the same.
Want to be together.
Yeah.
So that wears me out.
That's what I'm so thankful for was the opportunity to come up here to Lexington and play in college football within the SEC just because – that's the best of the best. And so you got to go all across the globe and every corner of America to get guys to come and play for your university and that team. And we had guys from Ohio. We had guys from Georgia. We had guys from Nigeria. We had, Max Duffy's from freaking Australia.
Yeah.
And so many different backgrounds and upbringings. And that's what I've always talked about the locker room was I was so thankful for. And people have asked me about this all the time. They're like, well, was there ever politics? Was there ever bullshit involved? And I was like, you had your arguments, if somebody said something to you personally, or something there, because you got 105 bulls in there in one pen. They're going to knock heads every once in a while. Yep. But outside noise, no, it was never anything like that because nobody really gave a shit because we all had different. We had so many different things to talk about of like, how many things we actually had in common. Oh, you like this artist? Oh, shit, I like that artist too, man.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you talk about something else and don't lead with that,
right,
you're going to be good. Man.
Yeah. Some of my best friends to this day, like that I met were, we were just talking about movies or talking about, music or different things that we all had, something similar that we all enjoyed. One thing that we all enjoyed, obviously a given was football, but I'm talking to be able to bond as teammates and be able to do that with so many different guys. You're not talking about just 5 to 10 guys like you would on a basketball team or 17 to 30 guys on a baseball team. You're talking 105 grown-ass men that are from all different areas of the world coming in and having one common goal saying, you know what, we all may believe something different. We all may look at a certain situation way different. We're not going to mention that shit because we got so much focused on about how we're going to get to this goal and what we're going to do together. And once we get there, we know how damn good it's going to feel.
Well, the word right there was together, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's because
I bet Duffy was a fun guy to be around.
Oh, he still is.
The reason I say that is that from all the places I went to in Australia, they like to have a good time.
See, there's the thing about Duffy. And Duffy, I hope you come on the podcast. I sent you a text, you motherfucker. You better text me back because I came on yours. But I went down to the bowl game with him in Orlando. We're not with him. I went down to the bowl game, and he was down there, and we linked up and went out, and me and him and a couple of other former teammates. And that guy drank from sun up to sundown. He didn't even go to the fucking game. He had great tickets. He got so drunk the night before that I was texting him. I was like, hey, man, I didn't know where his seats were at that time. And I was like, hey, I said, we got a couple extra seats in our row, corner of the end zone. Let's go. He's like, text me literally like I think with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter, right before halftime. He was like, oh, man, I just woke up, just got drunk as fuck. I'm probably not going to be able to make it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You just spent Matt Jones's hard-earned dollars coming down here to party with me and not even go to the fucking game. You spent all that money on those tickets. But, yeah, he gets after it, man. And Australians are fucking crazy.
My Australian friends would be glad to know he didn't let them down.
No, he didn't let them down. That's for damn sure.
Because they do enjoy having a good time.
I mean, it was unbelievable just to see some of the things that came out of his mouth and the things that how many beers and how many alcoholic beverages in general were taken. So it's crazy. But yeah, just getting back to the just being together part about that whole different thing is that, you know, if nobody can do anything by themselves, anything. Like I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if it wasn't for Brandon, if it wasn't for Rebecca letting me, you know, use this space. You know, I wouldn't be able to, you know, do the things I do, you know, without so many different people in my life that have such a big impact. And, you know, nobody can do this shit on their own. I mean, just like your family members when you were wanting to be in their band growing up, like you looked up to those people. You know, they were wanting I'm sure they helped you along the way of learning. We didn't get into that kind of conversation, but just to know that they put that in front of you and gave you that vision of, you know, this is what we enjoy to do. And all of a sudden, if it transitioned over to you to something that you end up loving and end up something you can make a career out of, you know, it just shows that, you know, nobody's ever alone in this shit.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people who helped me along the way, man. It was too many to even mention. I will say that, you know, my mom and dad didn't want me to pursue that music thing. There was a whole lot of people who tried to tell me I couldn't do it. I heard that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I heard that a whole lot about, oh, man, that's not going to work out. You're never going to do that. And so,
I just think it goes back to that no hope factor in Eastern Kentucky where we come from.
There's a lot of that. It's a forgotten area, man.
It really is. And I try to tell people about this all the time when I describe it back to them. At some point in time, some areas of it, it's almost like a third world country.
There's definitely areas like that.
Definitely areas like that. Because it's 2022, and I still know 2 or 3 hollers back in Johnson County where people they live on dirt floors, don't have running water, and no electricity. Like it's literally the 1800s for them.
There's no economic opportunity for any of those people. The only thing they had, and I say had because it's
gone,
being taken away, is the coal industry.
Yep.
And for me, I have no way, shape, or form am I against clean energy. If you can make something clean, affordable, then I'm all in. Bring me on board. The part that bothers me about taking those jobs was that they weren't given anything else. There was just those were gone, but nothing was replaced it. So all of those people are now out of work. Their families don't have anything anymore. But they're in such a part of this country where people can't see them. They're not in a city. There's no eyes on those people.
No.
And nobody knows what they're going through because you don't see them in the media. You don't hear about them on the radios. Nobody knows what they're dealing with up there. And out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
So it's a forgotten area, you know. Appalachian Mountains are beautiful. I mean, there's nothing like it. If you've never been up to the Appalachian Mountains, I'm sorry, you know.
Missing out.
And everybody up there ain't the Hatfields and McCoys either.
No, I used to fuck with people so bad. That's
used to wear me out.
Oh, dude. Did you get that everywhere you went? They're like, hey, you know the Hatfields and McCoy? I played along with it. I did. I was like, yeah. I said, hell. I said, Dev Lance is my, my great uncle.
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit, really?
Yeah.
Like I said, yeah. I said, I let shit start over a pig. I'd make up some of the craziest fucking stories there ever
I
was.
can't tell you the amount of people around the country that I've met when they find out that I'm from the Appalachian Mountains and I'm coherent and can actually use the English language. They're flabbergasted by that. Like, wait a minute. No, you speak well.
It's like you got unfrozen from 2,000 fucking years ago or something.
I'm not the only one that speaks well up there, man. It's not unusual. Try a little visit and you might learn.
No, but it's definitely in a forgotten area. And like you said, like with the coal industry going out and everything. But, when I look back on it and, and hear the stories from my grandfather who grew up in a coal mine or a coal camp, and, everybody's family did back in those days because that's literally the only thing we had. It was also how those coal companies treated those people and how they would only pay them in script and where they could only spend that money. It was basically fucking monopoly money.
In the coal camp.
In the coal camp. But you could only spend that money at the company store.
Right.
You can only spend that money at, the company this and that. And then once the company moved out, said, all right, we're done here. We'll see you later. It's like, well, what happened now? What am I getting paid with? It's like, well, you're not getting paid. You don't have shit.
Right.
You got paid monopoly money and that shit ain't good no more. So it's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? And then also how they treated people with broad form deeds and different things like that of, going up to people and, knowing that people in Appalachia at the time were not that much educated of people.
No.
So they didn't know how to read fine print. And they would look at a certain dollar amount because of how fucking poor everybody was in that area and be like, oh my God, we're getting this kind of amount of money, but they don't realize that's a one-time payment. Then they don't realize about taxes that come involved with that. And then they also don't realize that in that little tiny corner underneath all that wording, it says that we can do basically anything we want to your land to get this coal.
Right.
And if that means we got to bulldoze your fucking house, we're going to bulldoze your fucking house and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
So, sign it or not.
Yeah.
And so
it's bizarre how all that went down, I mean, yeah, there's a, are there uneducated people in the Appalachian Mountains? Absolutely.
There's uneducated people everywhere.
I was going to say, I've been all over this country, man. There's a lot of people live in big cities ain't ready to go on Jeopardy anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. They get their ass killed.
So, I mean, it's not just.
And half of them don't even have fucking common sense.
It's not relegated to an area.
But it's just
but
all
opportunity
about,
matters too, I think.
Well, I mean, like I always have this conversation with my dad, when I go back, and it's just, he comes to that conclusion too, it's just there's no opportunities. Mm-mm. I mean, unless you want to be, if you want to be a doctor, obviously you got to go to school for that, and you got to have the money to be able to afford that. Not a lot of people can do that. Everything revolves back to not being able to afford because, like you said, there's just no opportunity for people to build up a life for themselves. Yeah. And so they relied on the coal companies, they relied on trucking, they relied on just blue-collar American jobs that's being taken away from that area. And so now, it's just like, well, what's the best next thing? Probably selling illegal pills.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
That's
it took a big toll.
That's about it. And the opioid epidemic didn't help.
It devastated that area for sure.
And so
I went back a couple weeks ago, actually.
Did you?
To see my mom.
That's awesome. She still live in Floyd County?
Yeah, still lives in the same house I grew up in.
That is awesome.
You will, she'll be there until it's over, man.
Old
she ain't
school.
going nowhere.
No.
Went up on the mountain, climbed a mountain there behind the house, like when I was a kid, and just looking out over the holler, and I was like, golly, man, I actually miss this place a lot.
Yeah, I miss it a lot too, man. I get to go back every once in a while to see my family and, on holidays and different things like that. Springtime's rolling around, so I get to go back and fish a little bit too. Yeah. And so that's my favorite time to get back there. And turkey season's coming up, and just to be able to, see the mountains turn green again with leaves and be able to, see the waterfalls coming off into the lake and just the birds chirping, the quietness, and just knowing that, before everything got so crazy in the world,
right?
This is what's always been here.
It's gorgeous.
It's never going anywhere.
I don't know anybody who's went for the first time that left not going, holy cow, it's pretty up here. It's so green, and they love it when they see it. Like our keyboard player, he was from New York.
Really?
And we played that new arena they built up there in Pikeville. Is that Appalachian Wireless?
Okay. So and I've had this conversation with people as well. I was like, they said that Cody Johnson came play there or not, and I was like, did he play at the Expo Center? Because that's what it was to me growing up. He played at the Expo Center. Like, no,
that's what it was when we played.
Yeah, and they go, no, it's the Appalachian Wireless Arena, or something like that. I'm like, no, No.
It was Expo Center when we played it.
Just
too.
like it's not it's Commonwealth Stadium still to me.
Oh, and
forever.
Yes, I'm with you there. So we went up there to play, and as we're going up, Malin there up the 4-lane on up through Betsy Lane up in that area, and we get to a part where they had to blast out part of the mountain to get the road between it. So you had the rock on both sides of the highway, And he's from up in New York, and he was like, "So, Bo, is this what they refer to as a holler?" I said, "What?" He said, "Are we in a holler right now?" I said, "No, dude, you're in the good part of the road right now. You ain't seen a holler.
You're on US 23, brother. You ain't seen shit yet."
I told him, I said, in a holler, it's one lane. You have to know where the wide spots are. So
I love having to explain to people what a holler is.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you explain it to them, they're like, "What?" You're like, "Yeah, you got the mouth of the holler, then you got the head of the holler.
Yeah.
And then you got the king and queen of the holler.
Yeah.
And everything in between." It's like, okay, so explain to me what is holler. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do it for everybody sitting here listening. So when you go in the mountains, so you could be in East Kentucky, East Tennessee, Alabama, whenever there's a mountain region, and you start getting off on county roads, and you start going up in these windy hills, and all of a sudden you see a trailer or a house randomly on the side of a hill or up an embankment. That is when you know you're in a holler.
Yeah.
And then you keep going, and there's another house, and there's one might be down the hill there. Then there might be another one. There might be one stacked on top of each other. Then you're going to get to the top of the mountain or the head of the holler.
And there's no way out from there except to go back the way you came.
And then I've been in many situations before where we took the wrong holler, and we get up to the head of it. The guy comes out in a wife beater and a machete, and he goes, "You boys might want to go back to where you came from." We're like, "Well, how do we get there?" And he's like, "Turn your ass right back around and go down that hill."
Yep. There's no way out. There's wide spots in the road, and you know where the wide spot is. So if somebody's coming the other direction, whoever's closest to the wide spot has to get in it. Yeah.
And I've actually tried to explain this to a girl that I'm talking to, and she was like, "A holler, what?" And I explained it to her. She's like, "Well, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard of." And I was like, "Well, wait till hopefully one day you get to go back and experience with me." But I tell her every time, I'm like, "Honey, you get eaten alive." They'd pick up on your city accent, no hurry, and you'd get eaten alive.
Yeah.
But I'm just messing with her because everybody back there, they'll give their shirt off their back to
Absolutely.
anybody and everybody, and that's how we was raised, and that's what I've always loved. And even meeting you at the football game this past fall, first time meeting you, just being able to talk to you for that 5 minutes, just knowing that just like good old East Kentucky boy likes to talk, introduce himself, and have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was great. It was great meeting you there, and it was great having you on here, man. So from two boys that made it out to holler,
no doubt.
I think everything's pretty good.
Went pretty well. I have no complaints.
Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on. Next time we get together, we have to have a glass of bourbon or something.
We'll do it.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Whoa, I hit record a drop, you can't ignore it.